Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monte, Wyatt, and Paul Scieszinski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Welcome to the show. Looking forward to a great conversation today. Paul, it's always fun to have our podcast, and we talk about a topic to kick us off, to really get people thinking about how they are guiding their life, the awareness that they have, and how they can improve on that. And I want us to talk about the word ownership for a few minutes. So when I say the word ownership, what comes to mind? What's that mean to you, Paul?
Well, ownership, number one, like our podcast says, it's health, family, and business. I think taking ownership a lot of times is not owning a car, your house. A lot of it is taking ownership in who you are, taking ownership in your faults. I think that once you understand the truth and you take ownership in that, you can get yourself better.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's taking ownership of ourselves and our behaviors. And a lot of it is how we respond to what happens to us is the ownership. You and I were talking a little bit earlier about people not taking ownership of something happens to them and they just want to blame someone else. That's lack of ownership, where they're not believing they have any action into it.
Yeah, and you know what, Monty? I think we all, at some point in time, we all don't always take ownership, but as you get older and as you learn and your awareness gets bigger and better, you find out that if you take ownership, you found out what the truth, you can get better from that truth. And it's the only way, and believe me, I've been there, so.
I love how you added the word truth. Truth to ownership is truth to who we are. And what are you creating? Part of what one of our objectives of doing this podcast is to challenge our audience, challenge each of us to continue to grow. And to grow and get better in our life and our business and our health, we do have to take ownership.
It is, and I think the people that pass the buck are always blaming someone else, or the people that aren't taking ownership, and that's why they're stuck in the life where they're at, whether it's your health, family, or business. If you can take ownership and say, hey, this is where we're at, this is where I've made mistakes, and let's get better, and surround yourself with the people that take ownership, and that helps also.
Absolutely. And so, as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an executive, you have to take ownership of where you're taking your business in your life, because you're always being watched. And if you're blaming other people, you're teaching your team, your employees, your children that it's okay to blame other people. And we've got a great guest with us today that has taken some great ownership of his business, his career, his life. And so I want to welcome to us a college friend of mine and a client of mine. We're going to leave those stories out of here, stories on both sides that we'll make sure we don't talk about. But I want to welcome Doug Johnson. Thank you for joining us, Doug.
Well, thank you. It's really good to be here today. So I enjoy the opportunity to sit here and share with you guys a little bit more about ownership. So, which I think is a great topic, and you guys have already introduced some of the principles that it takes, obviously, with ownership. So when you talk about truth, and you talk about, so much about business is about trust, and trust is the foundation of a growth model, of making sure that you have a great business and a great team that goes along with that. So, trust is huge, because that's where everything really starts, as far as people buying into what you have. So,
and finding that, when you do those interviews and hiring them for your team, that's a process, and being able to identify those people that do take ownership in their. And those are the type of people, I think, most businesses that want to be successful are trying to find those people.
Absolutely.
And you've obviously been a successful company from day one to over the several years. How many years you been in business now?
So Bluestone Therapy, we can get into that a little bit, but Bluestone Therapy has been in business since 2009.
Oh.
So, yep. So,
I loved how you said the word trust in relation to ownership, because if how do we break trust with somebody? Is we didn't follow through on something. We didn't take ownership for a timeline,
exactly.
or we didn't take ownership for an action. So when we take ownership, we actually build trust. And when we don't take ownership, we don't want to hang out with those people anymore. We don't want to give them responsibility because we know they're not going to follow through.
Yeah, great thing you brought up there. But a lot of people out there don't realize, but Monte is a coach, a business. He works with a lot of businesses. So he has a lot of experience with people not doing what they say. And so ownership is a big thing with Monte. So just so you know that. He is probably an expert in the area.
Well, when I talk about ownership, I want to think about success as well. So the first question I want to ask you, Doug, and I'd love the audience to hear, our listeners to hear, how do you view success? What does success look like to you? Because you're involved in a lot of different things in your life, not only business, but you're involved in your community, your church, all kinds of things. Tell us what success means to you.
I think success, for a large part, really is determined, or how people view success, I should say, is really determined by where you're at in your life. Your younger years, it's all about getting ahead, providing for your family, or in making some financial gains. For me, where I'm at in my life, it's like I've accomplished a lot of those things. For now, success is, how do I get a little bit of my time back to really enjoy life, because I love our company, I love our employees, and I love being a part of that. But then there's another part of it too. It's that work-life balance, so to speak. It's besides just work, because I am very driven, very motivated to make sure my company is successful. But on the other side of that too, it's like, you got to get out, you got to travel, you got to do stuff, enjoy your family. So that would be success to me right now, is about getting some of that time back and having people in place at my company that can drive that ball forward without me being there. So
I love that definition, and I hadn't looked at it that way, but every decade or so it is changing.
Yeah.
From where we're at in life or our career, where we're going next. So, all three of us are farm boys from here in Iowa, and I think that's a powerful thing. If you would tell us your story, because you've had different jobs, you've had different careers, and then you're running your own company as well. So maybe tell us your journey, starting back in Osage.
All right.
And what you do.
Tell us what you do.
Sure. So start with what I do, but I'm CEO of Bluestone Therapy, which is a contract therapy company that works with long-term care facilities. So we contract our therapists and to provide therapy services, PT, OT, and speech therapy to long-term care facilities. So that's what I do right now. Going back to, grew up in Osage on a farm, very active within the farming community. We grew corn, soybeans. I had cattle. I had pigs. So did that. Was involved in 4-H, involved in FFA. And then went to Iowa State to school and graduated in agricultural business. So that was my degree in ag business. So, and that's what I did right out of college.
All three of us had ag business degree, right?
Yeah.
How small world, all three of us ag business.
That's why we're all gathered here
That's
today.
right.
That's right.
Brings us together.
Well, wrestling came from Osage.
Yep. And I was a wrestler at Osage.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I was a good wrestler, but I did wrestle in Osage. And actually, wrestling just in itself teaches you a lot about ownership and being successful, because you've got to perform out on the mat.
Now, is Doug Schwab your age?
Doug Schwab is younger than I am.
Okay.
So Mark was a little bit more my age. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Doug, I bet I counted more lights in wrestling than you did.
Probably. Well, I don't know if that was the case or not. But yes, I counted my fair share also. Yes. Well, we're not going to go takedowns for $1 here today.
Yes.
But anyway, so went to Iowa State, got out of college, worked for a company called Rain and Hail. You guys are probably familiar with Rain and Hail Insurance, and did some training with them, and then went I had a territory up in Wisconsin, which Rain and Hail had never had a field representative up there, so I was the first guy up there. They had a little bit of premium dollars up there, but my responsibility was to build adjusters, build the business, get agents, insurance agents to carry our product. And so I was there for 3 years before I left that, and grew that basically from zero up to, I think we had like almost $2 million in premium when I left, and that was within 3 years.
So I want to ask a couple questions about that, because our title of our show was What's Your Ceiling? You went into a territory that really didn't have much for business.
Correct.
And you had to go into offices that didn't know Rain and Hail.
Yep.
And convince them. So what did you have to break through in your mindset or your skill sets to make that happen?
That's a great question. So yeah, going into a territory of really having nothing there, and agents, I mean, the good thing is they sold crop insurance, right? But they just didn't sell Rain and Hail insurance. And it's like, why would they? Because nobody had ever visited them or tried to get them to sell it. So for me, it was, you got to have, it's all about relationships. It's all about, again, going back to trust. You have to get, people at least to trust you enough to give you a try or give you a shot at the business. So for me, it was like just developing that relationship, following through with the things that I said I was going to do. And then, without making a complete guarantee, but convincing them that we could be successful with if they sold our insurance. So it was the trust level. And then I had to believe in the product that I was selling too. So did that.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, you said you had to believe it yourself, because you're out there selling something that they've never bought and you've never sold it.
Right, exactly. And there's definitely times out there where I had to make some judgment calls. One of the scenarios that I had was in Wisconsin, they grow tobacco, right? And I have never seen tobacco. So this tobacco that they grow is for the wrapping. Okay, it's not the filler, but for the wrapping. And it's probably not on the finer cigars either. So, but one of my adjusters, who he was actually one of my adjusters, was also a farmer, and he grew tobacco. Well, we end up having a hail claim right on his farm. I knew nothing about tobacco. All right. So I don't know how to adjust tobacco, but you break out your manual, you break out, everything that you have, and then you go out and did the adjustment. So his name was Paul, actually, when I went out there. So, and we're looking at his field, and I'm like, taking a look at the manual, taking a look at the leaves, and the damage that was on them. And I'm like, so Paul, what do you think? Here's what I see out of this. What do you see out of it? And he would kind of give me his 2 cents on it, and I'm like, so we got done adjusting. I'm like, so what do you think about this whole loss? He's like, yeah, it looks like about 25%. And I'm like, looked like about 28% for me. So it's like, so that's how you made your way through it, right? You adjusted. Yes. So it was.
Evolved together.
Evolved together, yes. Exactly. So it was an interesting time, but it was good. So,
what'd you do after Wisconsin?
So after Wisconsin, actually got into the business, family business with running nursing homes, actually. So my father-in-law at that time had 4 facilities that he was running and needed some extra help to run those facilities, and was also looking at kind of freeing up his time. So he could go do some things and travel and get away during the winter months. So he hired me, and so I came on board to run the nursing home business. So,
very good. Yeah. And how long have you been in the nursing home business?
Still in it, but it's changed quite a bit from that. So 1995 is when I started with them. So, and that was Hawkeye Care Centers, and at the time we had 4 facilities in 95. And we grew that business till when we sold it in 2017 to where we had over 10 facilities. So, and we built a couple facilities, built some assisted living facilities, and then grew that from there.
So tell us a little bit about the growth, and because you had to change the way they were doing things, because your father-in-law had made it to a certain number of facilities and wanted to step away, give himself some time, but you wanted to grow. What did you have to learn, change, or believe to get up to that 10 facility point?
Well, we really had to change the way that we did things. So as far as like when you had 4 facilities, you could kind of manage the different processes and different systems of each facility that they had. And you know this, Monte, because you had to help me out with this. But as you grow in scale, you really have to have a very good process of how you operate. And some of the different things that you do throughout, you have to have a good process for that type of stuff. The other thing you have to have, obviously, is you have to have a great culture. And I learned a lot from my father-in-law, and he already had a pretty good culture. But it's like, how do you scale that? How do you scale that from being a small company to now, we're over $30 million in revenue. Where we started off was pretty small, so how do you scale that culture to make sure that you still have good people? So we had, some founding principles that we developed over time. We established core values, we established a mission statement, and then we had to have a culture that supported those things. So as you were talking about culture before, or behaviors, Monte, that's where your culture comes from, is your core values plus your behavior equals the culture that you have. So
that's a heck of a concept, Doug.
I know.
God,
I learned it from a very smart person.
Okay, Monte, you want to take a bow now?
Yeah.
I don't know who he's talking about.
Oh, I don't. Talking about in the so you're working with the therapy and then the retirement homes. Mm-hmm. And so you're basically, when you run one of these facilities in this business, your income is done by private and insurance,
Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, and private pay. Yep, those are our payers.
The 4 ways of how you make your money, and then you run the facility.
Yep, exactly. Okay. In 2000, and we had a really good company where we had facilities that had ownerships that weren't so great, and that they came to us and said, "Hey, would you purchase us? Would you buy us? Because we want to be under your umbrella." And we did that, and turned those facilities around too. It was interesting times with those facilities and turning those around.
What an awareness. Now, why would one facility be a failure when you can take a facility and take multiple and be successful? What
leadership? It is about developing and having really good leaders within your facilities. So, and that's one thing that we did really well was, the people that can make a difference in your facility, making sure you have really good people, Paul, and then paying them right, obviously. Because it's worth it. So, and then because they will be that sounding board for all the employees that are at that facility, which, obviously quality of care, having a meaningful culture and a meaningful delivering outcomes for your patients and being invested into their outcomes is a big deal. So,
yeah.
Very cool. So when did you get involved with the therapy business? So you have the senior living centers, you're doing this. When did you get involved in therapy?
So 2009 is when I started my therapy company. And that was a lot because again, going back to having outcomes, we really didn't have great therapy that was coming into our facilities. They didn't have the residents in mind. It was more about getting their therapist in, doing a 30-minute treatment, getting out, going down to the next facility across town. So for us, it's like, look, my people are not getting the services that they need, and we can do this better. And so that's when I started. 2009 is when I started, and I started in our own facilities that we were running. And then after a few years and kind of mastering that and knowing what we were doing, because I didn't want to promote the therapy company until I really knew what we were dealing with and how we could scale it and expand it and make sure that we were providing a service that I was proud of. And so after a few years, we started doing that. To where now we have over 60 contracts and we're in 5 different states. So
you went from zero to being in 5 states, 60 contracts.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
Zero.
Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you. So we employ roughly 250 full-time employees now. And then we have, if you consider all of our PRN employees, we have over 650 employees. So yeah, we've grown quite a bit.
So tell us about that ceiling, because you going from a small number of employees to 600, even if they are PRN, and going from 0 contracts to 60, how did you have to, or what did you have to break through in your mind and in your skill sets?
Man, it takes a lot of perseverance to begin with. So you got to persevere through. So, breaking through some ceilings there is when you start a brand new company, it's kind of interesting because you have people that fit that role at that particular point in time. And over time, sometimes that changes, or those people need to change because sometimes your company outgrows that person or that position. And we had, we got started, was going really strong, but at certain times it's like, we're going to have to change out this person because we're bigger now than what their capabilities are, or roll them into a different position. So really overcoming ceilings of knowing when to make changes, hiring the right people again for the right positions was the biggest thing there. So.
And you're probably creating like vice president position, those type of position, directors, and you're probably getting big enough. Do you create a board at some point? Or?
I don't have a board.
You've got an executive team.
Yep, I have a senior leadership team. So, so you're exactly right, Paul. Back when we first got started, we didn't have any VPs, but we had different people that ran our operations, ran our clinical positions. But as we've gotten bigger, I now have a COO who happens to be my wife. And she's an occupational therapist and just knows so much about operations. So she runs that part, but I do have a VP of operations. I have a VP of clinical, and I have a VP of outpatient services. So along with the other things like HR, finance, and all that too. So the bigger we got, definitely had to have those positions. And as we definitely saw that as an opportunity or a bottleneck that we had for a long time was I didn't have enough of those people in that position to make us continue to grow. So
how are you finding your employees? You got a headhunter, or what do you have?
Within our senior leadership, we have some really good people that network. All right. So, my business development person actually brought in a lot of our people that are on our senior leadership because he's connected on LinkedIn. He's connected within the profession. We do have a recruiter also that helps us with those positions too. So, but a lot of it's just being involved, being networked. Our VP of finance just knew me, knew our company. And when we were looking for somebody, actually reached out to her and was able to bring her on board too. So, yeah.
So Doug, throughout the years, you've tried different things.
Yes.
So it's great that your business has grown. You're scaling it. About last 13 years, went from 0 to 60 contracts. Tell us about something that didn't quite go as well. Maybe it was one of your investments or one of your brilliant ideas that you had, and what happened there?
Yeah. So, I think about, being successful business wise, it's like you have to take risks. All right. So some things, it's like you've got to put yourself out there once in a while and figure out what works, what doesn't work. So one of the things that didn't work for me was owning a convenience store. So back in 1999, Buddy and my brother actually bought a convenience store in Fort Dodge, Iowa. And we bought it from the mayor of Fort Dodge. His name was Gail Van Alstine. And he was the mayor. He was looking to get out. It was a Conoco Fastway in Fort Dodge. And it actually was okay for about 2 years. And then that third year, it's like we couldn't get out of it fast enough just because we had money going out the front door and product going out the back door. So it was an interesting time. And the other thing we didn't know when the mayor sold it to us was Walmart was coming to town with gas. They were already in town, but they were bringing gas, which, as everybody knows, Walmart, that's a loss leader for them to get people into the store. So that cut all of our margin out of our gas. And then they also put a median in front of our store, so it changed traffic flow too. So that was an interesting time.
So you're saying the mayor knew that, but you didn't.
That would be correct. Yes. So the mayor was smarter than what we were at that particular point in time.
Not quite full disclosure.
Yes, exactly. Maybe we didn't ask the right questions.
So yeah, what did you learn out of that you make sure in future developments and opportunities that you consider because of that scenario?
Yeah, a couple things with that is it is about asking the right questions. And are you always going to ask the right questions? Probably not. But it is being very thorough with your due diligence. Back then we knew nothing about convenience stores, but we had a good idea. It's like, man, they're making big deposits. How hard can this be? It's like,
everybody's buying cigarettes and gas,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's here.
Yeah.
Don't you find people that you were obviously fairly successful up to that point?
Right.
And I find this to be true with a lot of people that get into business. They find that they're very successful in one area, and they think they can do anything.
Yeah.
Because I've done it. I thought I could run a restaurant.
Right.
So,
exactly.
I've ran businesses. I've been successful. I can do this.
Right.
But it's not in your wheelhouse. You better think about it because it gets tough.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, because it's like I tell a lot of people that ask me of advice. I'm like, stick to with what you know. Yeah. Stick to what you know. Because if you don't, you can easily get in over your head, or make sure your risk is pretty low, when you're doing it. So, because that was a great lesson for me that I knew nothing about the convenience store business and knew nothing how to run it, and got in over my head. Mm-hmm. And luckily, we had somebody that came in and bought it. And bought it from us, but within 2 years that store is no longer there, so they had to close the store, and it's now a CVS instead of a convenience store. So yeah. We were lucky.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because that's, to me, part of the awareness factor is when things don't go the way that you plan, what do you learn from it? And that's part of growth, is recognizing and taking the ownership that, hey, I didn't know this before. Now I do. So the next time I experience this, I know to go left instead of right.
Exactly. Yep. So maybe not, as you evaluate opportunities that come your way, pick and choose the ones that fit you the best. And still, you got to take some risk. I'm not saying that you don't, but know who you're getting in business with, know who your partners are, and does it make sense for where you want to go.
So speaking of partners, you got in business with your father-in-law.
Yes.
You're no longer in business with your father-in-law, and I want to talk about your learnings from that scenario as well. If it's all right, we'd go down that path.
Sure, go ahead. We can do that. As I said, I learned a lot from my father-in-law, and he's a great man. And actually, we still have a little bit of business together where we have one facility that we didn't sell in 2017. Anyway, we have one facility and we provide therapy to that facility too. So there's a little bit of business that we still do.
You might want to clarify that. Your
ex-father-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ex-father-in-law. Okay. Thank you. So my ex-father-in-law. What was your question again?
So you had to break through a ceiling there because you've got deep relationships, and now you're no longer in that partnership. What changed for you mentally as you separated that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, what changed for me mentally is obviously is there was a lot of stress during that time because it was obviously going through a divorce, and at that time, Monte, too, we were selling the majority of our facilities, and so for me, I was still running all the operations, and was the president of Hawkeye Care Centers, and it was my responsibility to, as you sell a company. You have to keep the EBITDA to where it is because they're buying that company based on what the EBITDA is. Mm-hmm. And so that was a lot of stress going through, making sure that we kept our revenues up, kept our expenses down, and without really anybody or very limited amount of people knowing that we were actually going through the sale process. So changing, there was a lot going on at that time. So changing my mindset was still about how do I continue to run the company the best I can, because that's my responsibility. And again, taking ownership of that, of knowing it's like we still have to get the best price that we can for this company, and I still have to do the things that I need to do to make sure that happens. So it's fulfilling your responsibilities that you have, no matter what else is going on at that time. So,
that's a great point, because a lot of business is family. Mm-hmm. And so you still have to run a business based on financials, good decisions, what's best for the future, and Correct. Balancing that. And so I'm sure that was a very hard scenario.
Well, and you bring up a good point too. It's like what do you want to be known for? So you still have to, even though you're going through some really tough times, it's like you still, when you come out on the other side of it, you want to feel good about what you did, mm-hmm. and you want to feel good about where you're at. And while the relationships might be a little bit rocky, but you still know that you did what I needed to get to the other side, and I got to feel good about it too. And I do feel good about it because we left it in a better spot. We still sold it to where we wanted to, and I left it in a better position. So
that this is a perfect example of awareness. Not only is Doug has a high awareness, but he's a class act. He was in a very tough situation, family business, that he was involved with the family and the business, and then it went south on him, and they had to work out that relationship. And instead of knocking heads, he decided, you know what, let's work together. Let's figure this out. And I'm sure there's tough times, but that is really critical, that an individual like you that can raise above that emotion and be able to get a deal done in a business deal without it just completely blowing up. And your last comment saying you got to feel good at the end of the day when you're done making that deal. Yeah. And I think that is so huge. I think you and I both admire people that can do that.
And that comes back to the ownership of what do you want to be known for, and your relationships, and having that trust. Yeah. Because Iowa's a small place.
Yeah.
It is.
Industries are small places with a number of people, and so you still have to treat everybody with great respect and trust.
Absolutely.
And you know, I've never been through a divorce, but I can tell you, anybody can handle their emotions and still go with that level of business. I think you've been there. I know you've been there, and the way you explained how you handle it with your
I'm still working through
really
handling the emotions.
okay. You're still. I think. Well, you'd be starved for life, but. Yeah, that's all good.
I appreciate you sharing that. It is a tough story, but you had the strength to do that. And I want to lead to another part of what we talk about of the awareness is our health. And you've from stress to other things, we all go through health challenges. Tell us about your back, because I know you had some health challenges, and that affected you for quite a while.
Is this at the same time of?
No, this was after. So this was during 2019, 2020 is when this happened. So, so I ended up with some back issues, and I had some sciatic nerve issues. So it was a situation where I could not stand or walk or whatever for over 5 minutes before I had to sit down or I had to lay down, because I would get so much pain that would go down my leg. And so it was such a struggle. And so, I mean, it even affected my gait, you know, how I walked and like was starting to drag my foot even. So it's like, and I'm fairly healthy. I wasn't overweight and I wasn't, any of that.
And you're
stuff.
50.
Yeah, exactly. Just turning 50. Yeah. Put a 5 in front of your number and it's like everything goes to heck. So, but so it was a really tough time. And so then was getting medical treatment for that. And of course you have to go through a certain process too in order for insurance to pay for any type of surgery or anything like that. I had a lot of advice from a lot of different people that was like, do get surgery, don't get surgery. It's like none of those things happen. So that are good, if you get surgery. And it's like, but anyway, went through that process and then was scheduling my surgery in 2020, March. It was going to do roughly March in 2020. That's when COVID hit. So I had to go an extra 5 months before I could actually get surgery. So I'm living with this pain on a daily basis. And again, affecting, like you said, Monte, affects your work. Pain really, really affects not only your work, but your mood, your family, all that type of stuff. Pain is a hard thing to deal with. But luckily in August of 2020 was able to get my back surgery, and I'm back to good. It still takes after the surgery, I was on limited things I could do for a year. So for 3 months, I had to wear a turtle shell around. So anytime I was vertical or sitting, in fact, I wasn't even supposed to sit for like 3 months because that puts all the pressure on where the back is. So I was supposed to stand or lay down. And when I was standing, I had to wear this turtle shell around me. And you talk about hot, sweaty, whatever. It was like, it was not a pleasant experience, but was able to get through it. And then limited, obviously, on what I could lift, what I could do, couldn't play golf, all those different types of stuff.
Well, your surgery, how long did it take your surgery? And
my surgery lasted 8.5 hours. Wow. So I was face down on a table for 8.5 hours. It's interesting. Dr. Sherrill was my surgeon with the Iowa Clinic. And I would highly recommend anybody that has somewhat of a complicated surgery, definitely go to Dr. Sherrill because he's really good at what he does. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of interesting listening to him as he talked about my surgery. And what took so long was they actually took bone out of my hip and inserted that in between my vertebrae because I had no disc between my L5 and S1. And so they took bone from my hip, and then what they did was they pounded that in between those vertebrae.
Wow.
And so what he would have to do, and he's doing this blind basically. So what he said was what they would have to stop, take an x-ray, look at the x-ray, make sure everything was going right, and then go back and start pounding again. So that's what took so long, but did a great job. He's very detailed, very thorough, and he was always an interesting guy to go talk to because he's very personable and does a great job with taking care of his patients.
Yeah, he actually did my dad's, and it was a wonderful. Did a great job.
Yeah.
So
small world.
It is. Dr. Cheryl.
Dr. Cheryl. Yeah. 8.5 hours.
So you were doing all this and still running your facility, but your wife is a big part of running your business too.
As I said before, my wife's a COO. Teresa is her name, and she was really able, again, having really good people to be in your company that you feel good about. So it's great building a bench, and it's very important for people to build a bench to make sure you have competent and capable people that are running your company and can take over if you're not there. And my wife was the leader of that, and she did a great job. But we also have very good people on my senior management team, senior leadership team that just took the reins and ran with it.
You just brought up, which is a good point. I think Monte preaches this with his clients: is you don't want to always be working in your business. You want to be working on your business, especially when you're scaling at the level that you're at. If you cannot scale at that level if you're in the weeds all the time. You got to get outside of the weeds and work on that business. And what a great job you've done. And it sounds like you're growing your business even bigger. You got bigger plans.
Yeah. So if you guys are ever looking to do a strategic planning meeting, hire Monte because he'll do a good job for you. But it was this summer that we did, and you can comment on this too, Monte, but basically a 5-year plan. We've always done yearly goals, right? But I've never done like a 5-year plan of, hey, this is where we want our company to be. And
Doug, I want to correct you. Early on, you did not have goals.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. When we first started, yes.
When we first started together,
we show up.
Where are we going? Well, we're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people. They're just trying to survive. But once you started setting goals, then you had focus and you had direction. And sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say that.
No, that's a great point.
Good job, Monte.
Because it kind of brings us back to where we were. When you and I first started working together, it's like that was back when we owned the nursing homes. And we had just added a couple more facilities, and our processes, we had none. And so when I talk about having processes, that's a big part of what helped us grow exponentially and make sure that we were running a business that was very efficient and profitable.
Yeah.
So
you find what a great comment you made there, Monte. But I think it's important that people understand the processes. If you don't have the process and those goals in place, you'll find out your employee will get frustrated.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're going back to the same thing over and over again.
Well, they don't know what they're working for. They don't know what they're doing, and it's like, and what value do I bring to the company? I mean, we're all doing our job and we're doing what we're told to do, but at the same time, it's like, what are we doing for the greater good?
Mm-hmm. I think that's important. We're dealing with quiet quitting and great resignation and all that. I actually call it the great excuse, because it's management teams that aren't creating that emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't giving direction. So employees don't know what the future is. So they're going to go somewhere else where there is a future.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Monte. I agree. And I think it's more important today than ever. There's so many things that are moving around, but business, in reality, business has never been better. If you want to get out there and make money today, it's the greatest.
There's opportunities everywhere. And making those, we talked about it before, you've got to bring those employees, make them appreciated, show them your processes and your goals and your vision, and show how it'll meet their goals, their health, their and
family,
how they're a part of it. Because they want to be a part of something.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to be a part of something great, but we have to be working towards something great, and we have to define it. And that's the role of a leader of a company, is to define where we're headed.
Yep.
Which gets back to this, and we've talked many times about this, is at the end of the day, maybe it's not always the employee, maybe it's the business guy, maybe he's just not a very good businessman. And you got to get better as a businessman. and obviously scaling to over 30 million, and you're going up, possibly doubling that. That's what you call a good businessman. And those are the type of people that you want to work for.
Absolutely.
And that's what everybody out there should aspire to be: is know how to scale, put the processes, set the goals, and value those people and you'll attract them. I think you actually
absolutely attract them.
You'll attract the better employees.
Yep.
And the people will come, and they're out there. They're out there.
And it's really about having something bigger than just what you're doing. Yes, we have goals. We have specific goals. We want to grow in our contracts. We want to obviously grow in our revenue, but it's like, for us, it's got to be more than just the therapy that we provide, but we want to enhance lives. Our purpose, our mission is to building strength to enhance lives. So that's what our purpose is. And so then we've made a bigger goal to say, yeah, we want all this stuff, but if we do all these things, what are we doing? Well, our goal is to enhance 10,000 lives a day. Okay. So that is making people's lives better. That's providing strength, it's providing therapy, but it's also providing jobs to our people and making sure that we have a good company with good leadership, with good culture, that we're making a difference in their lives, because if they're successful at home. It's also enhancing the lives of our clients and our customers. So the facilities that we work with, making sure that we're helping them with making a positive bottom line also, and making them happy so they can go out and invest in the communities that they're in also. So it's a multiplier effect if we do a really good job by providing therapy to our customers and our clients and our end users, then we're making a difference throughout communities.
And this is your mission, you say?
This is our mission, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
10,000 lives a day.
That's really neat. That's really neat. And getting your employees to buy in and grab that's really great. Now, do you have core values that you guys set up too?
Yes, we do. Yep.
Okay.
So we worked on those core values also. And we live by what those core values are. So you've got to bring those up, during your meetings, during your hiring, during your performance evaluations with your employees. So you've got, as Monte said, or I repeated Monte, but that core values is so huge to what your culture is and what your behavior. It drives what your behaviors are if you're living to what your core values are. So it's a big deal to have. There's that fly again.
Well, Doug, I've really enjoyed having you on the show. And anything else that you want to share with our listeners of breaking through and your awareness and taking ownership? Anything else you want to share?
I think just, such a big part of, we were talking about, even before doing the podcast and just having conversations about, having that leadership, within your company and having the culture and being leading by example, obviously, and knowing that your people trust you and trust the direction that you're going is so important with any being successful with any company. And so treat your people right. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's really hard making the right decisions, which not everybody agrees with, but it's for the greater good. And so, just go out there and give your best and persevere and be resilient. So, yeah.
I love it. One of the last question we're going to ask every guest on our show is, what do you want to be known for? You've accomplished a lot. You've still got a lot of life ahead of you. What do you want to be known for from your kids, grandkids one day, whatever it might be?
That's a good question. I had to write something down, Monte, because I knew that you were going to ask me that question too. But, for what you want to be known for has to be more than just, your business side of it, even though it's obviously, for people that are entrepreneurs, of probably the audience that you guys are talking about, it is a big part of what their life is. But it's like, you got to be more than just a great business guy, more than just a great family, but you got to, in order to leave your legacy, you've got to give back to your community. You've got to, and that is how you run your company and your employees and your family. It's like teaching them how to give back to what the community is. So it's something that I'm still trying to figure out, even as we go forward, and figure that out. I've talked to my wife about this before too. It's like, what are we going to do? What do we want to be known for? So, but it is all about being able to give back to the community that has helped us get to where we're at today. So
I love it. I appreciate you sharing that. And, I really enjoyed hearing your stories. And Paul, we've learned a lot from Doug today. What are some key takeaways that you gained from our conversation?
Absolutely. I think, Doug, what a wonderful company you've built. And it gets back to people. I mean, he's about the people. He's about the people first. And, he realizes without building that team, making everybody feel part of that team is important. And I agree, absolutely. That's why you attract good people.
I love it. Couple other points that I took away, and I loved how you said it. Almost each decade of life is a new definition of success. And when you have awareness of that, wish we'd have known that about 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But
you have to live a few years.
We have to live a few years to get there. But I think that's an interesting way to look at it. But I also loved how you said, stick to what you know. It's good to diversify, but you still have your strengths that you want to be known for, things that you have skill sets in that, and then there's other areas that you don't.
Yeah.
And it's good to recognize that. So
that's a great point too, Monte. That is, you don't, as a business owner, you don't have to be the smartest one in the room, but you have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
Love it.
Or have the skill set to do that. So I think that's very important, because I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I have people that know how to get the job done and are smarter at that particular task. So
Awesome. Paul, we had a great conversation today. Doug, I really appreciate you joining us and learned a lot.
Thank you.
Hope all of our listeners learned new things as well to make sure that you're breaking through your ceilings to get the next level in your life, your business, and your health. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Great day.